Hi, good morning, Mom. I am Brittany Gokfan, and today I will be reading all about behavioral approach. Behavioral approach suggests that the keys to understanding development are observable behavior and external stimuli in the environment. Behaviorism is a theory of learning, and learning theories focus on how we conditioned to respond to events or stimuli. Behaviorism focuses on the idea that all behaviors are learned through interaction with the environment. A common example of behaviorism is positive reinforcement. A student gets a small treat if they get 100% on their spelling test. In the future, students work hard to study for their test in order to get the reward. Human behavior is learned, thus all behavior can be unlearned, and new behaviors learned in its place. Behaviorism is concerned primarily with the observable and measurable aspects of human behavior. Therefore, when behaviors become unacceptable, they can be unlearned. The central purpose of behavioral approach is to explain how leaders combined these two kinds of behaviors to influence followers in their efforts to reach a goal. Many studies have been conducted to investigate the behavioral approach. Behaviorism views development as a continuous process in which children play a relatively passive role. It is also a general approach that is used in a variety of settings, including both clinical and educational. Behaviorists assume that the only things that are real, or at least worth studying, are the things we can see and observe. We cannot see the mind, the id, or the unconscious, but we can see how people act, react, and behave. From behavior, we may be able to make differences about minds and the brain, but they are not the primary focus of the investigation. What people do, not what they think or feel, is the object of study. Likewise, behaviorist does not look to the mind or the brain to understand the causes of abnormal behavior. They assumes that the behavior represents certain learned habits, and he attempts to determine how they are learned. The material that is studied is always behavior, because behaviorists are not interested in the mind or its more rarefied equivalents such as psyche and soul. Differences about the conditions that maintain and reinforce human behavior can be made from the study of animal behavior. Animal research has provided a very important foundation for the behavioral approach. The behavioral researcher is interested in understanding the mechanism underlying the behavior of both normal individuals and those with problems that might be referred as mental illness. When the behavioral model is applied to mental illness, it tends to be used for a wide variety of presenting problems. It is perhaps most effective in treating behavioral disorders and disorders of impulse control, such as excessive drinking, obesity, or sexual problems. Behavioral approaches may be quite useful in treatment of anxiety and have occasionally been helpful in the management of more severe mental disorders such as schizophrenia. Behavioral approaches in education have achieved widespread acceptance in recent years, yet they stand in an uneasy relationship to theories of learning. Behaviorism is widely regarded as an inadequate theoretical underpinning for behavioral pedagogy, but no alternative explanation has taken its place. Moreover, many of the criticisms leveled by the philosophers at behaviorism still have force when applied to nominally theoretical behavioral approaches. This has led some writers to call for the rejection of behavioral techniques by teachers. These articles argues that behavioral educational practices are best placed within a rational or justificatory framework rather than within a strictly scientific account of human activity. Firstly, the distinction between these two explanatory frameworks is drawn. Secondly, the major criticisms leveled at behavioral accounts of human action are outlined. Thirdly, various aspects of behavioral education are discussed. In the light of a justificatory and rational perspective on human behavior, in order to show how such a viewpoint can both account for and enrich our understanding of behavioral practices. 6 characteristics of behavior. 1. Behavior is what people do and say. 2. Behaviors have one or more dimensions. 3. Behaviors can be observed, described, and recorded. 4. Behaviors have an impact on the environment. 5. Behavior is lawful. And 6. Behaviors may be overt or covert. Here are the examples of behavioral approach. Positive reinforcement. If you ask for a cookie, receive one as a result of your asking, and consequently are more likely to ask for a cookie under similar circumstances in the future. The contingent relation between asking for a cookie, that is the behavior, and the receiving one, its environment, is said to reinforce the behavior or increase the likelihood of it occurring again. Negative reinforcement. If your neighbors are playing loud music, so you shut your windows and consequently are more likely to shut your windows the next time your neighbors play loud music. Again, the contingent relation between shutting the window, that is the behavior, and the cessation of loud noise, which is the environment, is said to reinforce the behavior. So, the punishment. If you ask a supervisor a question, they respond by belittling you, and consequently, you are less likely to ask them a question in the future. In this case, the contingent relation between your asking a question or the behavior and the belittling or the environment is said to punish the behavior. Behaviorism emerged early in the 20th century and became a significant force in American psychology. These theories explain how experience determines behavior. Championed by psychologists such as John B. Watson in 1978 to 1958 and B. F. Skinner in 1904 and 1990. Behaviorism rejected any reference to mind and viewed overt and observable behavior as the proper subject matter of psychology. Through the scientific study of behavior, it was hoped that laws of learning could be derived that would promote the prediction and control of behavior. Russian psychologist Ivan Pavlov of 1849 to 1936 influenced early behaviorism in America. His work on conditioned learning, popularly referred to as classical conditioning, provided support for the notion that learning and behavior were controlled by events in the environment and could be explained with no reference to mind or consciousness. Fancher, 1987. And that's all for today. Thank you, ma'am. I hope you learned something.